Good evening and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. My name is Larry Abels and I'm your host for the evening. And let me introduce you to the distinguished panel that's joining me today. First, I'll start off with longtime friend and buddy from the old neighborhood high school, Charles Chuck Snow. How you doing, Chuck?
He's going to speak in a second.
Can you hear me, Larry? Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Thanks for that, Larry. It's good to see you. Hope all is well. And sorry for my picture today. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, in a hotel room, and the lighting and maybe the internet.
Hey, man, the camera only takes us there, so don't worry about it.
Thanks.
And speaking of Indianapolis, we have David Burnett. David, you want to share something about Indianapolis people may not be familiar with?
Well, I will say this for Chuck. Indianapolis didn't halt your transmission. I'll leave it at that. It's a great city. I'm glad you're there, Chuck. You're about 10 miles away from me.
Wow.
And you're missing out on St. Elmo's Steakhouse, one of the premier places where your buddy is feeding a roster of people.
Perhaps he can go when the show's over.
It's a short walk.
Yeah.
It's a short walk, yes.
Okay, let's get into it. There was lots of great matchups in basketball, lots of football transactions. So we're going to start with the NBA. Sunday, Cleveland defeated Milwaukee 112-100. Now, that was a game that I thought I'm one who thought that Milwaukee might be able to challenge Cleveland, but didn't look that way Sunday. David, your thoughts on those two teams?
I've seen mostly just the highlights of that game. Cleveland is on a tear. They got a 14-game winning streak. I don't think they're getting enough credit for the kind of basketball they're playing. Donovan Mitchell is playing out of his ass. Great player. Milwaukee is just a good team. They've lost a couple of players that have been around for a while. You can't lean on Giannis Antetokounmpo forever to dig you out of a hole. And, but Milwaukee's still a respectable team, but Cleveland is tough as can be. Arguably the second or third best team in the NBA.
Kung Fu, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Kung Fu.
What did you think of the game?
Cleveland goes about 8, 9, 10 players deep. They've done that all year. They're found out their third scorer. So they get stuff from Giannis. I don't think Kuzma, I don't know. They just don't seem to have that third person.
Speaking of Cleveland, they outscored Milwaukee by 30 points from the three-point line. They outscored them 57-27 on threes. Now, this game, Chuck raised a good point. Kuzma only got 14 now. Giannis got 30, Lillard got 22. And after the game, Giannis told Kuzma, he called him out and said, look, you're trying to fit in too much. Take some shots.
Right.
By the same token that Chuck, you mentioned about Cleveland.
Hey, Larry. I'm going to go out and come back in because there's a.
Okay. Go ahead. We are experiencing a little technical difficulty here, so hopefully Chuck.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Chuck, go ahead out and come back.
All
right.
Yeah, David, I was going to say Cleveland had 5 starters in double figures. Nobody scored more than 15 points. And then they had 3 subs that had 9 points. So they're getting it all up in a very balanced attack, even though Giannis got 30, Lillard got 22. Nobody on Cleveland scored as much as those guys, but yet Cleveland ran away with it. You're talking about a balanced team. They have a balanced team.
It's just a shame. Well, I hate to say a shame. They're being overshadowed by Oklahoma City this year, and they're also overshadowed by Boston, the defending NBA champion team. I think Cleveland is just not getting the recognition they deserve. They're well organized. They're well coached. They seem to like each other. They know where each other is. And Kyle Kuzma for Milwaukee, I've never been impressed by him. You know, he's not a great replacement for what they lost. And he's often injured. So we'll see.
Well, they're looking for him to score. And they're also missing Bobby Portis, who's an important man in their rotation because he's suspended for like 25 games for having a banned substance in the system. Next game I'll bring up. Chuck, are you back with us? Can you hear us okay?
Away or not, but I'll try to do the best I can. I'm sorry about this. You know, before
it happens.
Yeah. Because I want to talk about your team, a team that one of your favorite players plays on. I guess it's your team, the Lakers against the Celtics the other night. That was another good game. Boston ended up winning that game, but that was a great battle. Chuck, your thoughts on that game, Celtics and Lakers?
Yeah, they cut it to 4, Larry, in the fourth quarter. The Celtics can shoot themselves out of a game. They can shoot themselves in. And LA started making shots. Boston was stopped making shots. And then when LeBron went out, by the way, this came on the heels of them beating the Knicks 2 games prior.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in both games, valuable players, I guess everybody's valuable, but Brunson gets hurt and LeBron gets hurt, and that kind of put a damper on the weekend for me, you know, because I thought those guys were so good. David, Chuck mentioned that the Lakers had cut the lead. They were trailing by 20 points at one juncture in the second half, and they came back and cut it down to single digits. Did the Lakers show you a lot, and are they going to be okay for the next 2 weeks until LeBron gets back?
The Lakers will be okay because the fans keep propping them up. I'm tired of propping up the Lakers, but that said, they've got a good team when LeBron gets back. They've got a good relationship. Luka and LeBron have got some sort of chemistry that's helping the team. JJ Redick is coaching at a very high level.
I hope he can come back from that injury. That's the key.
Well, he should. He should. But now
Boston game, they lost to the Nets 2 days later too. So they're a little shorthanded right now.
Well, Boston is still the defending NBA champion and will be champion until they are dethroned, which they will be this year.
Hey, Sharice, thanks for joining us. Yeah, that game was pretty good too. I mean, Doncic got 34 points and James had 22, even though he was injured. Still had 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Thought he probably would have got close to 30 if he had been able to stay in there. But Tatum got 40 that day, and Brown got 31. So lots of firepower on both sides. But just the intensity of that game, of both games we talked about, was good. Then I'll move to the third game, and I guess I say third and fourth games because it was a back-to-back between Denver and Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City scored 127 both games. One game they won, one game they lost. First game, SGA got 40, Jay Williams got 26. And that offset Joker, who had a great game, 24 points and 13 rebounds. And Michael Porter got 24 points and 15 rebounds. What a game, David. Did those two teams, are they impressing you? Is this looking like a nice Western Conference final?
I think it could be the Western Conference Finals. OKC will be in the finals, Western Conference Finals. Who they play, It could be the Lakers, it could be the Nuggets, but the Nuggets have arguably the best player in basketball in the world,
Hey, Lauren.
in Joker. He's not going to win the MVP this year because that's going to go to SGA. But Denver has a veteran lineup. Their championship years only a couple of years ago. A great matchup, and I think it could be the Western Conference Finals.
Thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
So, Chuck, how does a team lose by 27 points when the Joker gets 24 points and 13 rebounds and Michael Porter gets 24 points and 15 rebounds? How does that happen, Chuck?
I mean, they're champs two seasons ago. They know what they're doing. They split with them. They beat the Thunder the next game. So,
right.
Two teams, they played 4 times this year, and both have won 2. They're 2-2.
Yeah. Chuck's having a little problem, I could tell.
It's ridiculous.
So, David, as Chuck was saying, the second game, Denver won that game. In the first game, SGA got 40 and Williams got 26 points. Mm-hmm. And they were able to overcome Joker and Michael Porter having monster games, both of them. Second game, Joker got 35 points and 15 rebounds, and Murray got 34 points, and they turned that around and put up 140. What do you think about the ability to bounce back for Denver?
Well, it's kind of a preview of a playoff series. And, historically, playoff series can go up and down, seesaw back and forth. The results may be shocking one night and not so shocking the next. I think they're relatively evenly matched. Denver is a championship team. Now, they didn't win last season, but they've won very recently. They have to be taken seriously, and they have the best player in the world, period.
Well, I'll say one day SGA looked like the best player. The next day, Joker looked like the best player. So it's back and forth.
Hey, look, I'm not criticizing SGA. I'm just saying, in totality, he's going to be the MVP. But the best, most complete player in basketball is the Joker.
Okay. No, I was just saying how they looked those 2 days.
Right.
SGA the first day, but he put 40 on him, and then the next day, Joker looked like the best player in the league. I'm going to switch to, we had an incident between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith, and there's been a lot of talk about this. And I'm going to start with Chuck. Now, for those who may not realize what happened, during a timeout in the second half of a game, Los Angeles and the Knicks, I believe, Stephen A. Smith went and confronted LeBron James LeBron James confronted Stephen A. Smith because Stephen A. Smith had made comments about Bronny's basketball playing ability. Chuck, what was your take on that? Did either person cross the line?
No.
Neither would cross the line.
Up for his son. His son's numbers, honestly, with people who were drafted 55th, teams, benches, who've been back and forth between the G League and the league. Anyone else's. And Stephen A. just goes at Bronny too hard, and I don't like it.
David. Oh, sorry, Chuck.
I applaud him.
I'm sorry. Bronny is not an NBA player. He's the son of one of the great players in the history of the NBA. That's all he is. He's an adequate player. If his name was Stephen A. Smith, we wouldn't be hearing about him. Like Stephen A. Smith's career, basketball in college, small college basketball is meaningless. And I don't mean to be so hard on Bronny. He's just an average guy who's burdened by the fact that he has one of the great players in history as a dad. That said, is Stephen A. Is it okay for him to take a shot or critique Bronny? Yes, because Bronny's not that good. I'll leave it at that.
Terry Reed, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Terry, hometown.
I'm going to jump off and go through my phone and see if that works, okay?
Okay. Fine, Chuck. Go ahead. We'll be here. Yeah, David, I tend to agree with you. I think what Stephen A. Smith's job is to critique players. I
Mhm.
don't think he did anything that was
You don't think he crossed the line?
no,
I
he
don't.
did,
No.
and he's hardly the only one that has questioned whether Bronny was ready for the NBA. As a matter of fact, I think I was listening to Stephen A. Smith, and he raised a good point a couple of weeks ago. LeBron went out on X and said, "My son's better than half these guys playing in the league," and he's actually putting more pressure on his son. The thing that I tell people is, if a I'm gonna take LeBron James' name out of it and just put it out like this: if a player confronts a spectator during a
Mhm.
game, doesn't the league normally take some action against that person?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think LeBron crossed the line. I wish Chuck was on so he could hear that.
Well, Stephen A. is a lightning rod for a lot of criticism, justifiably or not. He's soon to be the highest paid commentator in the sports universe, and he puts on quite an act. I don't have a problem with Stephen A. He's a showman. He's no longer a day-to-day journalist like he used to be, but he's a personality.
Yes.
And in this case, he did play college basketball. He does know the game, but he's a showman and will say whatever needs to be said to get eyeballs on himself and his network.
Yeah. I didn't even I went and looked at his YouTube broadcast as well as his comments on First Take. To me, he was just doing his job, as Kung Fu just said, just as a reporter reporting what he saw and gave his opinion.
Well,
And
I don't think we have to be Stephen A. to report that.
well,
Uh,
yeah, he's hardly the
he,
only one who says something like that.
I
You better
mean,
watch out there. LeBron James might catch you at some point.
Bronny's just an okay player. It's a shame that Bronny did not come into the NBA just without fanfare, like some other star players' sons have come in without fanfare. Just let them develop on their own. Now, obviously, everybody's not LeBron James. Everybody's not arguably the greatest player in the history of the game. But surely LeBron should have known. You put your son in a very awkward, terrible position when his skill set is not there, when his physical dimensions are not there. He's 6'1", if that, and he's just we would play back if we were his age. He'd be on the court with us on the playground, Larry.
You're raising a very good point because you think of other players, their sons came in the league, and it wasn't that if you draft me, if you draft my son, I want to play with my son and stuff like that. They didn't have any of that. They just came in the league in a more natural way and
Mm-hmm.
weren't subject to that scrutiny.
And they players, young players shouldn't be like the other son, Bryce. Don't hear a whole lot about him. He's a little taller. I think he's about 6'4", 6'5". Does he have a chance to be a pro? Well, yeah, because his dad is LeBron James. But all of the fanfare that LeBron James Jr. is receiving, aka Bronny, is unfair. Bryce is getting the kind of attention that a player, son of a star player, should get, and that is hardly any. And that's probably the best thing that Bryce James can ever expect.
Yeah. Hey, look, let's move on to the NCAA women's basketball, one of my favorite sports. Now, this weekend, it was a couple of games that I'll just touch on. One was UCLA and USC. Okay.
Right
UCLA,
here in Indianapolis.
and you know what? It was a Big Ten championship. That just blows my mind when I think about that. The Big Ten championship. I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, UCLA has lost 2 games this year, coincidentally to their crosstown rivals, USC. USC was up by 10 at halftime, but UCLA was able to come back and win the game despite Juju Watkins putting in 29 points. Any thoughts on those two teams and how they'll do going forward?
They're quite a rival, and in other days this would be a Pac-12, really shoot them out. But to be in the Big Ten, That's kind of cool. But those are two of the best female teams in the country. Number one and number two, arguably, and they're what? USC has won two, UCLA's won one, and they may meet again in the tournament. It just might happen.
When I was watching that game, UCLA has their center Lauren Beck. She had about 4 blocks. She had some timely blocks, even blocked Watkins one time. And Watkins really didn't shoot that well. She got 29 points, but she was only something like 9 for 28 from the field, which kind of hurt them in the second half. But it was an exciting game. I have to give that to them. And UCLA had again 10-point lead at the half. In the second half, they were outscored something about like 15 points and ended up losing the game. Hey, Phyllis, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Phyllis, how are you? I'm glad you keep watching. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And the other game I was going to talk about was South Carolina and Texas. They've played twice this year. First game, South Carolina won by like 17 points. The second game, which was last month, I think maybe the week before the Super Bowl, Texas won by 4 points, but they led wire to wire. Wasn't anything like that last week in the SEC championship game. South Carolina beat them 64-45. And South Carolina got their groove back, and Texas is pretty good. There's no shame against losing to South Carolina. What do you think about Dawn Staley and her crew going forward?
Dawn Staley is the gold standard in women's college basketball today. South Carolina is always, well, for the foreseeable future, is always going to be in the argument, just like Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma used to be. Always in the argument for national championship. South Carolina, no surprise that they would handle Texas that well, even though they lost to them previously. You say Dawn Staley, she's the identity of South Carolina Gamecocks, Lady Gamecocks. She's the identity.
Yeah, a lot. They've actually lost some games this year. People were, some in the media was questioning them, but they play such an incredible schedule. Oh my goodness! And the games that they lost to Texas, who was number one. They lost to UCLA, who was number one. And the other team that beat them was UConn, who were no slouches themselves. So, and they've avenged some of those losses. So I'm looking forward to the women's tournament as much as anything that's coming in sports in the near future.
Well, let me ask you, Larry. I mean, you watch a lot more basketball than I do. What's happening? I mean, we had a couple of decades of two great teams, Connecticut and Tennessee. And a lot of us watched those games, but we weren't overjoyed by watching. They didn't dominate the media presence. Of course, there was no social media back in those days. But what's happening now with women's basketball? I mean, you're excited about women's basketball. I'm excited about women's basketball. What's going on?
Well, one of the reasons I'm excited about it is it's a number of reasons. One thing is I like the way they play. They're very fundamentally sound. The game is good. They don't seem to make the mental mistakes that the men make. And part of the reason might be is that they stay in school 3 or 4 years and they develop as players. But the talent seems to have been dispersed greater or more equitably around the country. And the teams actually play each other. I just mentioned that South Carolina, they play their out of conference schedule. They're actually facing each other. So it's a lot of good games coming on. I mean, so competitive.
Well, one thing I do notice in women's basketball, as in basketball in general, basketball I've always believed is evolutionary. Players get better, they do different things. And I'm seeing lady ballers handle the ball better than they've ever handled the ball. Shoot better. Caitlin Clark isn't the only long-range sharpshooter. I think women's basketball will only get better. I'm still waiting for the high flyer. One day we will see a lady high flying, not just barely dunking, but skywalking.
There's some now. That lady Fuwali, she's just not that tall, but you see her running down on defense and blocking shots. She has a great vertical leap. She's just not that tall. But I've seen her jump up and block shots. I've seen a couple of other women do that. So as soon as one that's about 6'4" or something is like that, because I think she's probably only like 5'10" or something like that. I think we'll get there. Chuck is trying to join us, but I don't have his picture, unfortunately, so I'm not sure what his problem is. So we haven't forgot about you, Chuck. Chuck, if you can hear us, try to come back in a different way. Let's switch over to the men, David. Big game in the SEC. Auburn versus Alabama. Alabama edged them in overtime. There's Chuck. Okay, let's see if we can get him on here. Chuck, can you hear us?
I can, and I am so sorry about this whole.
No apology.
No, you're actually real good right now.
Okay, I'm on my phone, but let's go.
You're real good right now. We're about to move into Auburn and Alabama. Game winning the overtime. Sears is a running left-hander. I guess he's left-handed too. Chuck, did you see anything about that game? Check out that game?
I did. It was a 93-91 game. The two of them are unbelievable. I think they split this year as well. They're physical. They're fast. They got 7, 8 guys that just go up and down and score. The SEC has been very impressive. It was a war. And they're tough-minded. Both those coaches are tough-minded. That was a hell of a game. Like I said, 93-91. One is ranked 2nd in the country. The other is ranked 4th in the country. They're going to do some damage in the tournament, in the NCAA tournament.
What do you think of the guy Johnny Broome that plays for Auburn?
I like him a lot. He's going to get a lot of votes for MVP of the year, the best player of the year. But I don't think he's going to beat out Cooper Flagg.
Okay, David, you have any thoughts on that game?
I saw only snippets of the game, and Auburn, their coach.
Love that coach.
He just turns me off. I think he's a phony. I think he's overrated, and he's a backstabber. Now
let's focus on their players then.
Look, I can't. I just can't.
There was a key guy for Auburn, and this is not the first time this has happened. He elbowed one of the Alabama guys, got thrown out the game, and he was one of their key players. And since there was a 2-point game, I believe that margin, that was a key moment. It was early in the game too.
Well, in fairness, let me be fair. I know I don't like the Auburn coach, but Alabama is always the big brother to Auburn in both sports, football and basketball. Good for Alabama to get one in on Auburn, but they're two of the best teams in college basketball.
No doubt.
And I'll give them that. I just hope neither one win.
Sears, one of the Alabama players I was most familiar with, even when he was with them last year, can't even think of the guy, Miller. They were a pretty good combo. The Sears really didn't even have a good game offensively, but
he just made that shot. He made that shot.
I think he ended up with 9 points, but he got it as his buzzer was going off.
Right. Bruce Pearl is the guy that David likes so much.
I can't stand
it. The stuff that he did that was illegal is legal now. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he still snitched on other coaches when he was at Southern Indiana University, which used to be the Indiana State University of Evansville. I used to live in that town. He's a scumbag. Anyway,
yeah,
I really like him, as you can tell.
So let me throw this out here. There's been a lot of talk about Cooper Flagg, whether he should go pro or return to college another year. David, what do you think he's going to do, and what do you think he should do?
He's already a pro. He's making probably $5-6 million from NIL money. He is, as I said previous weeks, he is the Caitlin Clark of men's college basketball. He matches all of the criteria, and he's needed. We need an American superstar.
Let me repeat my question. Should he return to college, or is he going to go pro?
I'll get to that. I was getting there.
Okay.
You know how I am.
Like as you were Tyra was, you were telling me how the clock works, so I'm just trying to.
There you go. Anyway, he's making $5 or $6 million now. We don't know, since they
don't disclose it.
They don't disclose it. It's so shady. But he should go pro. He should go to the NBA. Provided he passes all the criteria, the current criteria, he should go to the NBA because he can get hurt. And the NBA is guaranteed money, NIL money. We don't know what it is.
So you think he will go?
I think he will go because he's too much of a celebrity. NBA needs him.
Chuck, do you think he'll go?
I love David's point, and it's a valid point. I guess you could take insurance out against the injury possibility, but the guy turned 18 on December 21st. He skipped the 11th grade, like he went 10th grade to 12th grade or something of that nature. So he's still very, very young. Those are grown men in that NBA. And if he can get, as David mentioned, $4 or $5 million to stay in college another year and get stronger and learn and compete, what's wrong with that? And the fact that we're talking about it, I think he's not squashed that. I would not be surprised. I'd give it 50-50 that he'll be back to college basketball next year.
He's going to NBA. I hear you, Chuck. I mean,
yeah.
But all the development and getting bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
We did not apply that to certain players like LeBron James.
Their bodies were ready.
Well, I think this kid's body's ready. He's already shown that he can play against the pros and succeed. Last year, in the practice games against the NBA All-Star team, Olympic team, he held his own, more than held his own against your son.
So let me ask you guys this question then. The way I look at it, if he's going to be the #1 draft choice, does he have anything to gain by coming back to school? Really?
Yeah, he does. His own. He might not be ready to go to the pros yet. He might enjoy the college experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. It really isn't, especially when you can put $4 or $5 million in your pocket. What's wrong with that?
He's enjoying the college experience, driving around in his Mercedes.
No, I guess what I'm worried about is I think when you're the top player, I think your bargaining position is very good. What if next year, his play falls off?
Okay, but I don't think it will.
I know that's the dice he's rolling, but
I think
he's going to improve his bargaining position by staying there. I guess that's really.
But I don't think with him it's about the bargaining stuff. Look, man, Larry Bird was in college for 4 or 5 years, and I think his career worked out just fine. So I'm okay with if this kid wants to stay. It's his call. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is I support him, and I don't think it's stupid if he decides to come back to Duke.
Yeah, no, I mean whatever makes him happy. What do you think, Dave?
If this was 3 years ago, 2 years ago, before NIL,
100% right, David.
He should go. He should absolutely go take the NBA money. But there is college money, and it's unregulated. It's virtually unregulated. So we're talking 5 or 6 million. Being very conservative, it could be 10 million.
You might well graduate then.
Well. What's a college degree gonna do for him? He's already made more than his mommy and daddy.
No, I said graduate because he can stay and keep making money every year
for 4 years. That's it.
He's a player, though. Let's not. I don't want that to get lost in this conversation either. I've watched Cooper a lot this year, and he can play. I mean, he can at every phase of the game: rebound, run, dunk, athletic, pass the ball, high IQ. I like his game. I don't know that he's a Caitlin Clark in terms of how Caitlin was just so he could shoot. Caitlin's thing is she could shoot the three, and she was just so extraordinary in that regard. Cooper is good. He's good, but I don't think he's Caitlin Clark, and I don't think he's going to have the impact.
Well, I compare him to Caitlin Clark only in the potential impact that he has.
Socially, right.
We just do not have, and I.
You can say it. You can say it. Great white players. You can say
we don't have great white American players.
American-born white players.
The best player in the world is white. Joker is white.
Yeah,
he just ain't from America.
The best players are not from America, regardless of what color they are. Lately,
that is true, Larry. That is true.
The thing I think about him going pro is I just think about his second contract because that's when they start making the big money. So
yeah.
He'll be a year behind if he doesn't go now. I think he's in great position being coming out as a top player this year, so he'll command the top dollar. And I think he can just flat out play. So
he'll make $100 million a year in 5 years from now. That will be the top NBA salary, will be $100 million a year.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be hurting for money. That guy, along his whole career, he's that kind of talent, in my opinion. So,
okay.
Is he better than Larry Bird? No.
Well, let's
you know what, David? At this, hey, hold on, David. At this age, when Larry Bird was 18,
Larry Bird was picking up garbage.
Exactly.
He was doing that when he was 21 or something like that, right? Because he went.
Oh, he took
he
the
was
1
picking
year
up garbage when he left IU
after his freshman year.
Yeah.
And he didn't even spend a year. He was at IU, Chuck.
2 months. 2 months.
He was one of your roommates.
He came in with me. He came in the same year I came in.
1974.
Yep.
All right.
Was he in your dorm?
He was. He was in McNutt Quad. He sure was. It was in my dorm. I've seen him around the whole thing. But he wasn't Larry Bird then. I mean, he was Larry Bird. But, you know, his greatness came later.
Superstar.
Right.
Yet. He wasn't the best player in Indiana.
He was the hick from French Lick when I saw him.
Yeah, he's happy on the garbage truck.
So look, we're gonna move on to the NFL now. So something hit me. I guess Max Crosby ended up getting a contract the other day, and he immediately became the highest paid non-quarterback. That lasted all about 2 days.
Right.
Myles Garrett re-signed with the Browns, and he became the highest non-paid non-quarterback player. But Cincinnati, for some reason, is not giving Trey Hendrickson.
They should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah. Even though they have no problems on offense.
No, they do. They have a problem on offense.
What's their problem on offense?
Jamar Chase.
No, I'm talking about they were able to score.
Oh. I thought you were talking about pay. I thought you were talking about paying people.
No, I think they're probably going to pay them. But I mean, their weak spot was definitely defense.
No doubt.
And, you know, they were offensively, they were doing great. What do you guys think about those deals? And all of a sudden, defensive linemen out of, glory positions.
Right.
David, I'll start with you.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
I think Myles Garrett deserves every bit of the $40 million a year that he will earn, at least on paper. I think all the other defensive player, what's his name?
Max Crosby.
He's a great player.
He is.
But how do you justify, because I say it as many weeks as possible, a guy that almost was the MVP running back making half.
Excellent question.
I'm sorry. At some point, and Larry, you and I have this discussion all the time. I know it was negotiated, but they've got to find a way. We've got to come up with a way. Maybe the public.
Okay, but we're talking about the defensive ends now.
Oh, well, I know what we're talking about.
All right.
But
they've actually made a breakthrough that you might be suggesting that could happen. And I'm suggesting it might even be able to happen to somebody.
Well, let me offer you this. I know we're talking about Myles Garrett and we're talking about Max Crosby. I know that. But when I continue to see guys make upwards of $30 and $40 million a year, and the top running back, who was arguably the MVP of the league, makes half of that, there has to be a way to figure this out, because he needs to make close to that kind of money. There ought to be guarantees, bonuses. If you can't pay running backs right up front, give them a special running back bonus. They have the shortest careers of any player.
But what has happened? We have a position that wasn't up there until this year. Now all of a sudden they've got that might open the door for anything.
Well, no. Wait a minute. The brother that played for the Rams, he was making $30 million a year.
The defensive tackle.
Yes. He was the number one non-quarterback paid player. I know he's retired now.
What is his name? University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but as a group, it looks like linemen are passing wide receivers.
Well,
So
because
things can change.
Because it's still all about the quarterback. We've got to protect the quarterback who doesn't get touched.
Aaron
anyway.
Donald. And thank you, Kung Fu. It's Aaron Donald. Good
Aaron
call,
Donald.
Kung Fu.
Aaron Donald.
Chuck, what do you think about these guys making?
I think David is on to something. David is, and David was right. David has been saying for years that if you're valuable to your team, you should be able to, regardless of the collective bargaining agreement, push their salary up and their value. So what they're saying, the Raiders, and they only won 4 games, and Cleveland only won 3 or 4 games, they say that Myles Garrett and Max Crosby are valuable to the point where they're paying them much more money than other defensive ends are getting. And I like that. And by the way, Philly did it too. They didn't have to, but they gave Saquon a raise because now he's making $20 million.
Right.
But
And that's all he was asking.
$20 million.
Yeah, and that's all he was asking for in New York.
Yeah.
And they should have
let me ask
They
you this,
have to do
Chuck.
that. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Chuck and Larry. If all things were fair, what should Saquon Barkley, the top running back, arguably the MVP, what should his salary be this year?
Well, that's a good
$40 million.
I think. Hey, look, David. I don't think I would lock him up to a long-term contract because he is a running back. But you're right. This year he should make as much as Sam Darnold or some of those quarterbacks that have signed for $40 million. I absolutely agree with that.
Thank you. We agree with
absolutely agree.
All right. I'll bring you over to the right side.
I always tell you, the players could take care of this in their collective bargaining agreement if they could set a limit in negotiations. And I don't know why management would disagree with it if they would say no one individual could get more than X percentage of the salary cap. They did that for rookies. So when rookies come in, their salaries are depressed. They could do the same thing for quarterbacks, and then that money.
Well, Larry, let me ask you this question, Larry. And again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole with the contracts, but look, the fact is they did pay Max, they did pay Myles Garrett, they have paid Saquon more money than they have in the past. So it must be something in the agreement that allows them to pump up the salaries.
Oh, they can pay whatever they want to pay, but what happens is the way the contract is, if you franchise a person, they can only get X amount of what people are making. And right now, running backs are not making that much. So that X amount of the top 5 or something is going to be a low number. Well, but if they would have capped so that no one individual player could get, like, I don't know, quarterbacks might get like 25% of the salary. If they capped them just like they do rookies, because rookies can only get so much, then it'll be more money for everybody else.
Well, let me just say this. Wasn't O.J. Simpson the highest paid player in the NFL at some point?
Back in the day. I think you might be right, David.
I'm just saying. Wasn't Jim Brown the highest paid player in the NFL at some point?
Probably.
I'm just saying. He's 3-time MVP, Jim Brown. I'm just saying that position needs to be reworked. And if you think that a running back's career is only 8 years long at tops, then those 8 years should be prime pay for a spectacular player, not an average running back, but for a Saquon Barkley, who is an MVP quality level player.
So
he should make the top.
My suggestion of how they could do it, I think the money should be split more equally to all the players, and the players apparently don't see it that way. Because they could take care of that. They made sure the rookies weren't eating up all the money, because the rookies used to come in and get the big chunks.
I agree with you.
They take care of that.
But the Eagles made such a big deal, and the NFL made such a big. We're paying Saquon Barkley the highest amount of money ever paid to a running back. Shut the hell up. That's garbage.
That's a pretty good salary.
It's a good salary.
They can cap everybody's
$40 million worth.
They could cap everybody's paying 20 or 30 million, then a lot of more players could get paid.
Well, Larry, if that's a pretty good salary, what did this guy in Buffalo, the quarterback in Buffalo, they tore his contract, gave him a new contract. Look at the money he's making. Why should he get all that money and not Saquon?
Oh, I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Right.
Like I said, the players, if you had a team and you're the owner of the team, and we agreed that you're going to get a certain percentage of our gross and you can split it among the players. All right. If you tell me, well, we want to split it, everybody gets an equal share. What difference is the owner should it make to me? Long as I got my share and you got your share. But the players don't want that.
Well, I'm just really confused by this conversation, honestly, because if Max and Myles Garrett get $40 million and their team doesn't win, and Saquon is a star, third in MVP voting, it seems to me he should get on an annual basis as much as them. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Period. End of a full stop. I don't know what else to say.
You know, all the running backs don't have to make that, but Saquon
But he
had
should.
a sterling year.
See, you're pointing to the linemen. I think the quarterbacks are the ones that are.
Them too. There's some people there too that's making too much money. Right.
That's who's messing the whole thing up. That's why I said
Dak Prescott, $60 million. Please.
Come on, man.
What they make, it frees up money for everybody.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah,
So,
but good for them.
Some of them have made some moves. Geno Smith went to the Raiders.
Yes.
Oh, my heart was broken.
Yeah.
But I like
him to go.
He followed Pete Carroll. Pete has had success with him. He wanted him. So, let's see if it works out. I hope it does. I'm rooting for it.
But the fans loved him in Seattle.
Yeah.
He was a perfect replacement for Russell Wilson. Perfect.
Yeah.
But then he asked for a trade, right?
I don't know that he asked for a trade.
That's what I read, that he asked for the trade.
Maybe he wanted to get with Carroll. Who knows?
That might be it.
They were playing around with him. I mean, he's 35, I think 33, 34, 35 years old now. And you start wondering how many more years does he have left? Is he this or that? He's only thrown for 4,000 yards, 3 seasons in a row?
And they got rid of they were getting rid of his wide receivers too.
One of them. Yeah, they got
maybe
rid of,
that's why he wanted to leave. If that was
DK wanted to trade the other one, they got, I can't even think of his name. Pretty good guy. He decided to leave, or they decided.
Right.
Wow.
Justin Fields with the Jets. What do you think, Chuck?
I think both of them are. And by the way, that's $13 million. That's just $13 million, boy. Anyway, I hope Justin can get it together. Unfortunately, he went to an organization that's should be charged with malpractice, because I don't think they know what they're doing.
They don't.
The Jets are horrible.
David?
But he reunites with his wide receiver Garrett Wilson, who he played with at Ohio State.
I think Justin is a pretty good player. He didn't get a good run in Chicago. He didn't get a good run in Pittsburgh. And Russell Wilson's better than him at this point.
I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, he does things better at this point. But this kid is 26 years old?
Yep.
He has room to grow. All we need to do is look at what happened with Geno Smith, who was on the trash heap.
Sam Darnold,
trash heap. Sometimes there can be Jim Plunkett, a second act to your career.
Yep. Rich Gannon, the quarterback that's with Tampa Bay right now. That was with Cleveland.
Right.
Won the Heisman.
I want Justin Fields to go someplace where he might have a great chance of succeeding. I thought Pittsburgh.
They got a new coach.
Yeah, I was about to say they do have a new coach, but it's something about their organization that just
bad.
Yeah, gives me the chills. And he's in the pressure cooker of New York because for some reason people think the Jets are Super Bowl worthy. I have no idea why.
I don't either.
But
56 years is a long time. 56. Okay. I watched that game. That was a great game when the Jets beat the Colts.
Joe Willie Namath.
Monumental upset. Now, Daniel Jones, speaking of the Colts, is now with the Colts. What's the view from Indianapolis, David?
I think, and I'm listening to talk sports radio and some of the TV guys who are allowed to talk a little bit. I think it's a good move because Anthony Richardson has not performed. He gets hurt often. He's played half the games that you can play in 2 years. Half. He gets hurt. He's brittle. I want him to be successful, but he threw 40-some% pass completion. It's not good enough. Daniel Jones can win that job because he's kind of like a negative version of
Justin
Anthony Richardson.
Fields. It's kind of like a Justin Fields to be in my mind.
Yeah.
Has he been as good as Justin Fields?
Yeah,
Well, he's been to the playoffs.
he has.
That's a
Justin
different
has
question.
not.
He has Saquon in that backfield, though, David.
Well, Saquon was often injured with the Giants. So he didn't have Saquon all 16 games every year.
But that was he only made the playoffs that 1 year. He did have him back there then, and a new coach.
But they didn't have him for the whole season, if I recall. He didn't have him for the whole season.
How do you
But
feel
Daniel Jones is not bad. He's not bad.
He's only got a 1-year deal, right?
Yes.
1 year for 15 million,
Yeah.
13 million, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I guess they're taking a wait and see approach. Chuck, what do you think about that move?
It just says that they don't believe in the quarterback that they have, or at least going to give him another year to grow and maybe learn from Daniel, or they're just going to have the competition itself. And let's see who wins the competition in the offseason. You know what I'm saying? And through camp. I don't think it's a bad pickup for the Colts. And Daniel Jones, the one thing he can do, like Justin and like Richardson, they can both run. So when they're in trouble, they can pull that thing down and take off. So, and he's a smart kid. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. For $13 million, that's a bargain. That says they don't expect a lot. And let's see if he can, get his career going again. We'll see.
Well, I think it's a good deal, basically, for the fact that we're going to see what kind of person Anthony Richardson really is.
Right.
Is he going to crawl up and turn into a little ball and start whining and crying about it? Or is he going to play if he's nicked just a little bit? Is he going to tap out?
And ask him, come out. Right.
His maturity level is not high. And, maybe it's because he hasn't played that much football. He's played less than 30 games at college and professional level.
We're going to play a little game called where are they going to end up?
Okay.
I'm going to give you a name and you tell me where they're going to end up. Kirk Cousins, Chuck.
Maybe the New York Giants. Maybe the Atlanta Falcons. They might keep both of them. I'd say the Giants or the Falcons.
David.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, that leads me to the next guy.
That's where I was going to say. He's
Russell Wilson. Where's he going to end up?
Giants.
Chuck, Russell Wilson.
That is a good question. I don't know. I don't think he'll be Pittsburgh's quarterback. I shouldn't say it that way, but I don't know where he's going to end up. It's going to be like musical chairs. He might not have a team.
Ooh, okay. So while I have you, Aaron Rodgers.
I think he will end up in Pittsburgh.
David.
Pittsburgh.
Okay, you guys agree on one thing. This is Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers.
How about Minnesota? Minnesota seems to me that they need a veteran. Also, they can't expect. They lost both quarterbacks, Daniel Jones and Darnold. So it seems to me they can't expect J.J. McCarthy on a team that was 14-3 last year to be their only solution at quarterback. Does it?
I think it can be a look at the future, because as good as Minnesota was, when push came to shove, they got their ass kicked.
Well, they lost to Detroit, though. Detroit was good.
You got to win. You
Detroit
have Sam Darnold
was
playing
good.
a career season, and in the end, he was nothing. He was
Lamar Jackson has had bad playoffs 4 or 5 years in a row, right?
He ain't Lamar Jackson.
Well, no sugarty, but in the playoffs, they're about to say.
Yeah, I think they're like really rolling the dice there.
I agree.
If they're going with, I'm looking for them to sign somebody.
Me too. I don't know.
Let me ask you guys this: was J.J. McCarthy that good at Michigan?
No, he barely threw the ball. They ran the ball all the time.
And regardless how good he was,
Coming
they
off
had
a knee.
nothing to look at on a pro level, and their team was very close to making a lot of noise this year.
And he's coming off a knee surgery.
Well,
Yeah. They got to get
He's
a
been
veteran.
inactive for a long time. You're right.
I don't think Minnesota is caring about winning right now. I think they're
What?
trying
They
to
were 14.
well, they were
Why
almost
wouldn't they
there.
be?
They know they can't win the Super Bowl. They're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they will fill that brand new stadium up, pretty as it is.
We got one of the best receiving cores in football. Period.
I think if they have a good quarterback, they have a good chance of
And
doing it.
by the way, they don't have to be super good either. They could be like Sam Darnold and
who
still.
they gonna get? There's
Maybe they'll
nobody.
We have
Maybe they'll
Aaron Rodgers,
Maybe they'll get Aaron
Russell
Rodgers.
Wilson, Kirk Cousins.
Russell Wilson. They had Kirk
I
Cousins.
just
They
never
got rid of
quarterbacks that
him.
out there.
They got rid of Kirk Cousins.
They'll take whoever's left standing.
Well, there ain't much left.
I was shocked that they didn't give that man a tag, $40 million tag, to give him one more shot, one more year to see if Sam Darnold was for real. While training up JJ.
I think they would have seen it as a problem because JJ McCarthy would have been technically healed enough to play, and I don't think they want to harm the guy's psyche. I think they want to get him in as quickly as possible. Medical science is so much better. His knee injury is probably in much better shape than 90% of guys who've been hurt in the same way.
They believe in him, obviously. I was thinking somebody like Mariota could go there, but Washington re-signed them today, so that's good. But I was thinking for someone like that, they need somebody that can push him a little bit. I was surprised they let Daniel Jones get away. But so who's going to quarterback the New York Giants?
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. What do you think, Chuck?
That's as good a guess as any. I'll say Russell Wilson too. I don't think he's going to be coach.
Didn't one of you guys say Pittsburgh is going to let him get away?
Both of us. We think Aaron Rodgers might be. Right.
Done. They've moved on. They had one.
Although they did go and get his boy DK Metcalf, so maybe there's maybe there's still some synergy there, and that might keep him. I don't know. We'll see what they're going to do.
I like Russell Wilson, but he ain't the same guy.
I agree with you. It's time.
I think none of those three that I mentioned are the same guy that they used to be.
None of them are. You're right about that. Absolutely.
All right, it's time for closing comments. David, we're going to start with you.
I'm just going to say this. If you can tune in to the Big Ten Championship, you might get a picture of Chuck Snowden.
I will be there.
The IU bench if IU can win against Oregon. And I'm cheering for IU to win.
Thank you, David.
And then you have something else?
About
Junior Bridgman.
That is correct. I was going to talk about Junior Bridgman. By the way, one of the great success stories in the history of the NBA, in the history of professional sports.
Yeah.
Junior Bridgman from East Chicago, Indiana, who played in the state championship, went to Milwaukee Bucks, has ownership, partial ownership in the Milwaukee Bucks at this point. Over 400 fast food restaurants. At the end of his life, he was worth an estimated $1.4 billion.
What a story.
He passed away, 71 years old, wasn't expected to die. Tremendous success story. An average player. He had an average career, wasn't a bad career, wasn't a great career. It was right down the middle. 12 seasons, and he was respectable. But as a businessman, as a human being, as a humanitarian, he was great.
Well,
he even made his kids go to school, get their MBAs, and work for someone else before he brought them into the family business too. That's really a lot of foresight.
Great ad, Larry.
Well said, David. Also, he was part of the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Laker trade. Bridgman came from LA to Milwaukee, and then Kareem went to LA, etc.
Absolutely. He played at Louisville.
He did.
Played at East Chicago. I think it's East Chicago, Washington.
Yep, up in the region in Indiana.
Up in the region. I remember seeing him play as a high school player. I'm younger than him. I just wanted to say that.
Chuck, you got a closing comment?
I do. Okay, so I'm going to try to be quick with this. Kareem Russell, Wilt, Shaq, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Moses, Alonzo Mourning, Dwight Howard. Where does Joker fit in that group of incredible centers? Where will we put? Oh, he's a 3-time NBA MVP. The other day he had 22 rebounds, 20 assists, and 30 points in a game. Where do we, let's stop kidding around. Where do we put Joker in the history of great centers in this league? I don't know the answer to that, quite frankly.
Quite frankly, in that club that you just mentioned, for sure.
But early in that club, I mean, is he ahead of Kareem, Russell, Wilt, Shaq, Hakeem?
Olajuwon, yeah.
I
think he's right there with Olajuwon.
Put him in the club.
Yeah, amazing. He's an amazing player.
Absolutely. He's above Pat Ewing. I'll tell you that.
Anyway, I wanted to acknowledge that game he had, and quite frankly, the career he's having. He's only 30 years old.
Absolutely a great player. David thinks he's the best player in the league.
He ain't wrong.
He's the best player in the world.
Well, this year's SGA is, but okay. We're splitting hairs. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us. David and Chuck, it's always a pleasure.
I apologize for the technical difficulties, everyone. I really do.
You worked well toward the end, so you finished strong, man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, you handled it well.
And we'll see everybody next week, 7 o'clock on Real Fellas Talk Sports.
Good job, Larry.